Slayer! Hi, I'm Tom, and in this video I'll show you how I kitbash the new Chaos Knight Ruinator using some spare bits. This is the second night I've kitbashed using the Dark Mechanicus theme. This is the first one I did. If you haven't seen that video yet, check it out after this one. I'll be doing 3 nights in total and they'll all be going on eBay next week, so please subscribe so you don't miss it. And let me know what you think of it in the comments. The Ruinator is the newest addition to the Chaos Knight range. It's equipped with a dark flame lance, i.e. a flamethrower, and a fellbore which looks like a huge mining drill. It's also equipped with 2 terrapulse missiles either side of the head. For the base of the model, I'll be using this Imperial Knight that I rescued from eBay. And a little tip for anyone who's new to building, don't base coat them on the sprue. You coat all the contact points with paint, which means they don't stick together unless you use super glue, which is brittle and makes the model fall apart like this. As well as the Knight, I'll be using lots of spare Chaos Knight and Imperial Knight bits, namely the melter weapon and the chain swords. The first thing I needed to do was deconstruct the Knight and scratch all the paint off of all the contact points. I then glued them together with plastic glue. I then got to work on the dark flame lance. I used this spare melter part to sculpt the flamethrower. I needed to cut it into 2 parts, here and here. Boobity bobbity boop. I then had one piece that fits into the shield side and one piece that fits into the end of the flamer. There would be some small gaps that I would need to fill too. I then attached some plasticard to the backing plate so that it would fit to the arm. I then used this brass rod to build the fuel pipes of the flamer. I measured them to size and then cut them. I'd advise using some old clippers for this. As I was adding this rod, I needed something for them to attach to, so I had to fill the melter head full of bits of sprue so that I could bore a hole into them for the rod to fit securely. Once I had measured the rod to size, I drilled holes and glued it in place using super glue. Then I was left with some gaps and I decided to use jeweler's chain to cover them up. This would also add to the chaos look of the model as well as giving it some extra support. I then pinned the Knight arm to the back of the base plate of the flamer. This jeweler's chain is very easy to attach. Just put a dab of super glue and stick one end of the chain there and then wrap it around and reapply super glue. It's very secure once it's full of glue. I then had to sculpt the flame at the top of the weapon that lights the flamer fuel, and I used a lantern from a random kit. I attached a headphone wire along the flamethrower to the gas tank and bound it in place with some soldering wire. And there we are, one dark flame lance. The next weapon I built was the fellbore, which is basically a long mining drill arm. To make a cool match for this, I decided to attach 3 of the Knight chainswords together to a point. I used this spare bit from the Chaos Knight kit which holds the flail tentacle things, and attached a brass rod down the centre. I then used brass rod to pin each chainsword to the flail attachment. Boobity bobbity boop. And here we are, a makeshift mining drill. I then attached headphone wire to all of the holes on the swords and led them into the arm to give it a robotic Mechanicus feel, and then attached this to the main shoulder joint. I also attached jeweler's chain around the joints to give it extra support and also add to the chaotic feel. And there we are, a fellbore. As for the head, I found this Sector Mechanicus scenery piece that I had, and I removed the skull as it has Dark Mechanicus vibes and also fits in with the mining industrial feel of the Knight. I dry fitted it to see which bits would need to be removed. This piece at the back and the dangling legs need to be removed or repositioned. Need to move them from here to here. So I need to cut this little thing here. Bloody hell. Well, That was efficient. I think this has been stuck together with super glue as well. Bloody hell. He's trying to get me. Dodged. He's the chosen one. I removed the legs and then reposed them on the back of the skull. I then drilled a hole into the nose socket and attached a cable, as this again gives a Dark Mechanicus vibe. I'll also attach more cables at the back of the skull too. The head mount on the Knight chassis was in the way, so I removed this and then drilled holes to attach the skull and the additional cables. I then pinned the skull in place with some brass rod and dry fitted where all the cables would go. Once I was happy with the position of the skull, I wrapped the nose cable around the side of its cheek and up around the back of the head. To work out where to attach the pin on the back of the skull, I first drilled the position for the pin, then drilled from inside onto the head to mark where I needed to attach it. When I was happy with it, I glued it all in place. I attached cables into the holes at the back of the skull. I positioned them before glue to work out where I wanted them to go. When I was happy with the position, I trimmed them to size and glued them in place. If you don't have a set of tweezers, I'd advise you get some. They're very handy, especially when kit bashing. There we go, one sweet looking evil robot mechanical thing. The next kit bash is the Terrapulse missiles, and this one was the most simple. I used the Knight rocket pod front plate and cut it in half, trimmed it down to size, and then attached it to the gun and pauldron attachments. Simple. With the rockets, I had all the bits I needed. I used an Imperial and Chaos shoulder plate, which I scratched with a knife and a drill to give some battle damage to it. I damaged the chest plate and also added mechanical symbols to the loincloth. For the paint job, I sprayed it all with lead belcher metal spray. I then base coated all the armour plates with white. The reason for this is that I'm going to add strips of masking tape, then spray red over the top and peel off the tape to reveal white strips. I added the masking tapes in long, random strips. I then sprayed Mephiston red base colour all over the base plates, and I added 2 thin layers of this. Mesmerising to watch. Also, good point, you need to let all of the paint dry before you remove any masking tape. If you do it when it's wet, the paint will either seep into the masked areas or it will peel off. And here are the peels. Oh yeah, how awesome is that? You may notice here some of the red has leaked under the masking, and I like the look of that as it makes it appear that the white has been faded or chipped. You can also mimic this intentionally by sponging on red paint over the white edges. Oh, that's a good peel. I then painted all the cables and then any armour trim that's been sprayed over back to lead belcher base. Bibbidi-bobbidi boop. I added some gold accents and then I moved on to decals. Got some Chaos Knight ones and some Imperial Knight ones. Bibbidi-bobbidi boop. I added all the decals and then sprayed the whole model with matte varnish. I then used contrast Black Templar, Game Ink Blue and some Caribou Crimson to do some corrosion on the exhaust vents and on the flamethrower. I also used Black Templar contrast paint to spray all of the panels with a shadow, and I sprayed where all the panels joined together. I then stuck all of it, other than the armour plates, together. Bibbidi bobbidi boo. And here it is all built. This looks awesome, but we need to make the metal look a bit more interesting and all the panels look a bit more exciting. So I'll be using streaking grime and this oil paint from Abtelung 502 called Engine Grease. I'll give you one guess what that looks like. You need to use a synthetic brush and you paint the streaking grime all over the armour panels. The reason I apply this, when it's dry, it applies a sort of dirty dust, dry dust, and it goes into all the crevices and darkens the armour as well. And then as for the engine grease, I just made a simple oil wash. So a little blob of oil paint and 2 syringes of white spirit. Mix it all together and then you've got this consistency. And I apply that over all of the metal work. It runs into all of the recesses. You don't need to clean it up after. This just gives the model an aging metallic engine look. For the armour panels, you let the streaking grime dry for about 30 minutes, and then you apply white spirit with a cotton bud. So the aim of this, I'm not trying to remove all of the streaking grime. I'm trying to leave a film of dirt over the top of the armour panels, and it dries matte. And this is why we applied the varnish before, is to protect the paintwork underneath. On here on the shoulder panel, you can see this is what it looks like when it's starting to dry. All the metal has got a dirty, dusty look over the top, and the red panels have got a dirty film over them as well. And here is the finished model. Also, I applied blood to some of the chains, the claws on the face, and all the chain swords. Blood for the blood god. I did some glow effects on the eyes too, and some random buttons. Here the loincloth, I've put some rust streaks on it as well. It looks freaking awesome. There's some pigment powder on the base and also on the feet as well. This flamethrower is looking awesome. Here on the chains I've put blood all over them and some extra grime as well, and rust. And here on the top you can see the chips and dents I've put in it have got grime in them and become more prominent. So please subscribe, let me know what you think of it in the comments, and if you want to support me further, I have affiliate links in the description below, and I also have a Patreon where you get access to my Discord server to see behind the scenes, and I've recently started doing YouTube full time. And thank you to my latest Patreon supporter, Damian Ellison. Hail to you, champion.